Meeting of the Finance Committee to order on November 18th, 2020. As chairman of the Finance Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order, number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, subsequent extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are first providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID being 826-1379-4838. And the passcode being 098835. The public may also view the meeting on channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the Nashua Public Library. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via a phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Patricia Clee.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear the proceedings. I am not really alone. You can hear my little whiner in the background there, but I am technically human alone in the room.
Alderwoman Elizabeth Liu.
I'm here alone and I can hear you.
Clerk says I'm present. I can hear everyone. I'm in this room alone and I'm practicing social distancing. Alderwoman at large, Shoshana Kelly.
I'm here. I'm alone and I can hear everyone.
Alderman at large, Brian Michael Laws.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
Alderman at large, Michael B. O'Brien Sr.
I am present, I can hear the proceedings, and I am alone.
And Mayor Jim Duchess.
I am practicing social distancing, therefore at home, and I am alone in the living room. We've done the roll call. Public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to the committee?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Laura Cahoon.
I see Mr. T-Boom. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I don't normally attend the meetings, but I've been tracking the cost on the Performance Arts Center, which is on your agenda for R20-093 for approval for the guaranteed maximum price. I'd like to say, first of all, that the contractors Icon and Harvey are doing a very good job on the estimating, especially when compared with the very faulty estimate from the web study that preceded the current project. But being a guaranteed maximum price, I did look at the details, and the details are in your attachments to your agenda. So I'll make a few comments. I won't take too much time. The cost, the guaranteed maximum price is now for the construction part of the job, not the total project, which is $25 million, we're talking just the construction of the Performance Arts Center, is now priced to be guaranteed maximum at $15.8 million. However, the option 2, and I presume this is option number 2, the steering committee considered many options. On 2 January of this year, the price was estimated at $15.2 million. So you have an addition here of $600,000. I started looking at the spreadsheet. That is, the details are in Exhibit H, pages 12 and 13, which are pages 61 and 62 on your attachments, if any of you have a computer tracking this. Essentially, the subcontract costs went up by about $600,000, and the construction management contingency fees went up about $200,000. So the committee ought to ask the question, why did the construction management contingency fee go up? And especially why did the subcontract cost go up? That combined $800,000 increase to some minor reductions elsewhere. So the total increase, like I said before, is $600,000. The committee ought to look into that. The outstanding item that I paid attention to, that in the spreadsheet, like I said, it's on page 61, 62, there is no contingency for the design. There's contingency for the construction managers and some other contingencies. I ran my own spreadsheet on this thing, but there is no design contingency. I don't know what that means. And looking back at the original presentation by ICON back in 2 January, there was no design contingency then either, and I don't remember anybody asking a question. I attended that meeting. There's no design contingency. What does that mean? It means the design is done, no changes, or the changes are picked up elsewhere. On the architectural fees, for example. It's not clear to me where the design contingency is in this guaranteed maximum price. One of the spreadsheet is kind of interesting. There's a $100,000 difference between if you add the summary of pages 61 and 62 versus the guaranteed maximum price presented in your resolution, there's actually a $100,000 discrepancy. Not a very large number, but still, the actual additions add up to about $100,000 more than the guaranteed maximum price. I don't know if anybody, including Tim Cummins, has checked these numbers, but I put it for the record. I don't know who's attending from Harvey, but they ought to answer the question why the additions are off by $100,000. And it's it favors the city. The numbers are add $100,000 more than there's in the resolution. Now there was a Zoom meeting on 28 October. I did not attend the meeting, I forgot about it. But Tim Cummins told me by email that they cut about $800,000 from the estimate that was presented in 2 January. Now, I don't know what was cut. You can't, there's a very lengthy exhibit which lists all the drawings. There must be several hundred drawings in this design. Of course, the drawings are not part of your package. There's huge amounts of design information. The $800,000 was cut, so it's not clear what was cut. He mentioned that the second elevator was cut, and I don't know what the impact there is. It's probably now up to the Finance Committee. There's 2 elevators. The second elevator was cut, some additional cuts. But if you combine these two, so there's a $600,000 increase in the estimate presented earlier in the year as an $800,000 cut, and there's a combined impact on the price of $1.4 million. That represents about 10%. That's not necessarily upsetting because between estimates and final, nailing down a guaranteed maximum price and guaranteeing that, 10% is not unreasonable, but the figures ought to be understood. Why is there a $1.4 million difference? And Tim Cummins ought to address it. The final point I'll make, there is a lengthy list of exclusions. Again, not everything gets nailed down. And many of these things deal with security cameras and security and getting rid of soil that may be contaminated, unseen defects in the existing building that's going to get torn down. That's not. But the list of exclusions that is an exhibit. I think it's J. Well, anyway, you have an exhibit, list of exclusions. But there's also a list of exclusions in exhibit H, which is the estimate. The list of exclusions in the later exhibit is much lengthier than the list of exclusions within the estimate. And that's problematic. The list of exclusions ought to be at least understood. List of exclusions set you up for change orders. Change orders are expected. There's got to be a certain amount of contingency in the $25 million. I estimate at least $1 million of contingency against unforeseen problems, which are listed in exclusions. And there may be exclusions outside of those exclusions that are later on found because you're dealing with tearing down an old building and on the same site, putting up a new building and attaching that to an existing building, which is called the apartment building. So it's a fairly complex operation. But in your resolution, there are two lists of exclusions, one a lengthy one and one not so lengthy. And that ought to be understood. That's the result of my comments. I'm not against, I'm feeling fairly impressed with the presentation by Akon and Harvey in the attachments to the resolution. And I myself serve on the Finance Committee. You only have so much time to get into this one because you have other items on your agenda. So you may ask Tim Cummins a few questions along this line, and then let the steering committee deal with the rest of it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to address the committee?
Laura Cahoon.
Please proceed.
30 Greenwood Drive. I know the board is reviewing the guaranteed maximum min for the PAC tonight. However, has anybody come up with the costing of the exclusions? How much is the city of Nashua going to lose on permit fees that are going to be waived? Nashua taxpayers need to know how much more money is going to be required to get this project up and running. Before anybody decides on this amendment, I think these questions need to be answered to both the board and the Nashua taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public wish to speak? If not, we'll move on to communications. First from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Madam Clerk.
Yes. I motion to accept, placed on file, and approve the purchase of 7 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles, which will replace the 7 2018 Ford Interceptor utility marked vehicles from M-H-Q Inc. Municipal Vehicles, Marlborough, Massachusetts, in the amount of $304,124.10. Funding will be through Department of 150 Police, Source, FY21, SURF, and 81500 vehicles by roll call.
Now I see there's someone from the PD on. I'm not sure who it is.
It's Brian Slicker, Fleet Supervisor.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Brian, how do you spell your last name?
Sojka.
Thank you.
And could you please give an explanation of this item?
What we're looking to do is replace 7 of our existing cruisers with the 2021 police interceptors. It is a redesigned vehicle from 2018 to 2021. So there's a little bit more equipment that needs to be purchased because we can't interchange the old parts from the old cruiser to the new cruiser like we have done in the past. And we actually are shooting for our 100,000 mile mileage by the time we replace these vehicles.
Okay. Any question or discussions? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clay.
I'm sorry, I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
I recognize your voice.
It's Elizabeth Liu. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think, can everyone else see me?
We can see you when you're speaking, but I can't see you otherwise. So I need you to step as you did.
All right. Quick question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask why why the vehicles were presented this way. I know that I think the purchase is for 10 or 11. I have to look again. Is that because there are 7 that are the same? Is that the packages are slightly different?
Yes, they are. The 7. I'm sorry, Brian Soika, Fleet Supervisor. The 7 vehicles are identical to each other. So they're the same equipment, same everything in the vehicles. And then we have 2 other orders that we're looking to do, but the equipment in the cars are different. That's why they're not all combined together.
All right, thank you. And is 100,000 miles the goal of the life of these vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see anyone. So, Madam Clerk, we're on then to the next communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
A motion to accept, placed on file, and approve the purchase of 2 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles, which will replace 2 Ford Interceptor utility marked vehicles from MHQ Inc. Municipal Vehicles, Marlborough, Massachusetts, in the amount of $85,002.60. Funding will be through Department 150 Police Source FY21 SURF 81500 vehicles by roll call.
Don't we need to vote on the previous one?
First one.
We didn't do the first one. I'm sorry. We didn't do the first one by roll call. So let's go back to the first item.
Thank you. I was going to say
4,000. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clay.
Yes.
Alderwoman Liu.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
And Mayor Dodges.
Yes, and the motion passes. So we're on the second communication, and the clerk has read the communication and made the motion, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Are there questions or comments on item number 2?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Liu brought up a very good point, and maybe the police department can speak on this equally as well. But knowing vehicles and everything, yes, they do shoot for the 100,000 miles, but you got to remember that these vehicles, some of them are running almost 24/7. So it's not just mileage, it's what you compensate, what they call engine hours. And so you have to take that into consideration. So they may be approaching, like I say, the 100,000, but their engine hour potential is well up there. So it's just a point for information. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clay.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mayor Dodges.
Yes, and the motion passes. Next communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Harriet Gathright.
A motion to accept, placed on file, and approve the purchase of one 2021 Ford Interceptor utility marked vehicle from MHQ Inc. Municipal Vehicles, Marlborough, Massachusetts, in the amount of $59,372.93. Funding will be through Department 150 Police, source FY21 SURF/851500 vehicles by roll call.
Any discussion or questions on this item? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clay,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mayor Dodges.
Yes, and the motion passes. Next item is again from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager.
I motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of 10 sets of personal protective equipment from Bergeron Protective Clothing in the amount of $25,848.70. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, source 61110 Protective Clothing by roll call.
Any, the PD, are you still on?
You mean fire, person protective.
Good evening, it's Steve Buxton, Assistant Chief National Fire. How are you?
Good.
Steve Buxton, Assistant Chief, yes.
Thank you. This is basically a partial order for protective clothing. This is the structural firefighting gear that our members wear when responding to incidents. It's in line with what we've done in the past, and we make multiple purchases of this size annually. There'll be another one of these come springtime when we go to hire our new personnel. And I can take any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody have questions or comments for Assistant Chief Buxton?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, Chief, I know the answer, as you know, but to assist the public, because it is, like you say, a reoccurring event. But the life expectancy of this protective clothing, it does have a life expectancy and needs to be replaced. And plus, our firefighters are going to multiple incidents, and they do need a couple of sets. And every single incident you go to creates wear and tear. So there is contamination. So can you just give us a background how important it is that there is a life expectancy and why we are rotating this to keep the members safe?
Certainly, Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. So basically, industry standard requires us to replace interior structural firefighting every 10 years. All of our members have 2 sets of protective clothing, and the reason for that is because when they come back from an incident, we have to decon, clean their gear of carcinogens, debris, and other items as such that aren't very good for us. We have a program in place that we've been adhering to for several years now. It's planned, it's been approved by the Board of Fire Commissioners. And it keeps us, so we're replacing their primary set somewhere in the 6 to 8 year range. So their second set is right on the cusp of just outside that 10-year window. The reality of it is they're not in that second set that often unless they're laundering their primary set. For instance, yesterday we had a multiple alarm fire down the south end of the city. So 38 members of the fire department went back to quarters after, utilized the extractor machines in the firehouses to clean their protective clothing. Obviously, they need something to wear and respond to incidents while that's being laundered. So that secondary set of PPE is put in service at that point in time. Does that answer your question, Alderman O'Brien?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Sir.
Anybody else have questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, you mentioned the 6 to 8 years. Do we track the usage of these, or do we just, you can do a visual and say it's time? Because I know there are probably some firefighters that go out more often than others, only because of the shift that they're on or something to that nature. I don't mean that one works harder than the other, because that's not the case, but it could even be one engine company. So is there a way that you track this, or is it just you do a visual and say there's a little wear and we need to replace these?
Thank you. That's a very, Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. That's a very good question, Alderwoman Clee. So we do have some companies are busier than others, and some see increased fire activity than others. They wear their protective clothing pretty much to every incident they go on. So the busier companies do see more wear on their protective clothing than the slower companies. That being said, you know, by luck of the draw, you could hit multiple fires and wear through your protective clothing faster than somebody else on the fire department. We do visual inspections on an annual basis. They have a regular schedule where they're supposed to be laundering and inspecting their PPE of their own will with their company officers, but there's also an annual program within the department where we inspect. And as the deputy chief, you can see him in the crowd there, Deputy Kirk, he's the guy in charge of ordering the protective clothing. So as he's analyzing his list of names of who's up for replacement in that 6 to 8 year window, he's also analyzing who potentially might be departing us in the near future because they've reached the end of their tenure. So it's not really worth buying them a new set of PPE because they're still inside that 10-year window, as well as who can probably get a couple extra years out of their PPE versus who we have to replace on the early side. So there are multiple factors that are taken into account when we decide if we're actually purchasing somebody's PPE.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make one quick comment, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Yesterday's fire, I had heard that there was one firefighter that had been hit by something. I hope he's doing well and everybody else stayed safe. I know it was a very large fire yesterday, so thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you for that. And he is doing very well at home, resting with his family at this point in time, and expected to make a full recovery. Thank you for your thoughts.
Anyone else? Questions for Mr. Buxton? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou?
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Laws?
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yes.
And Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Unfinished business, there is none. New business resolutions. R 20093. Alderman Harriet Gathright.
A motion to approve the guaranteed maximum price amendment for the Performing Arts Center.
And that is resolution 20093.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Cummings is here on this item.
Yes, good evening, Mayor.
Could you please brief the committee on the features of this resolution?
I certainly, again, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development for the city. And the resolution before you is the furtherance to a contract that was already approved by this body relative to the construction management of the Performing Arts Center. We're now at a time where we are have a guaranteed maximum price, which is $15,821,890. And this number is actually, pretty much spot on with what was previously discussed. It is slightly higher by about 18,000 from the previous estimate that was done. The estimate that was referenced during public comments in January of 20, that was a very early estimate. There had been 2 or 3 estimates done subsequent to that most recent, to that one that was done in January. The 15.8 represents hard construction numbers, hard bids that have been given. There was an approximate overage of 800,000 that did come in when this was bid in August. And what you see is a lot of value engineering that was done over the last month or so, which brought the figure down by some $780,000, which brings it back into line of the 15.821. But and it was done pretty much that wouldn't affect or feel anything in terms of the Performing Arts Center. There were 2 items that I thought warranted a discussion. One was the loss of the second elevator, and then the second was some material that would be used in the outside of the building that I wanted to make sure the steering committee was well aware of. So we had that discussion and to understand those were some of the trade-offs necessary to keep this project on track. It is completely designed. There's no need for a design contingency any further. The total project is $25 million. This is just the hard construction figures. There's 2 contingencies, it should be noted, with this project. There's one for a construction contingency. There's also an additional owner's contingency on this project. And there's also some escalation built in as well, approximately $250,000 in escalation. Why do I mention all this is because we put this out to bid in August. We put this out to bid while we were in the middle of trying to understand whether we were going to achieve the new market tax credit. We knew that closing of the new market tax credit was going to take some time. So we need the prices to be held. And we have the prices being held until December 30th. And there's been a lot of moving parts over the last few weeks to try to bring this to the point that it's at now. So we thought it was prudent to get a number locked in. And then if we needed to, we could do a change order and take some from owner's contingency or escalation if necessary. But that's proved not to be the case, as all the bidders so far have indicated that they're going to be holding their prices until we can get them under contract, which if we close on December 15th, we would be looking to put them into contract sometime right after that closing. So I need this to be approved this evening so we can move this on and show it as part of the project for the new market tax credit deal, as it is part of the paperwork for that transaction. That's all I have at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Any members of the committee have any questions or comments for Mr. Cummings?
Yes, I do.
Alderwoman Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Director Cummings, one small question I have is the escalation or escalator. I'm not familiar with that term. Could you just tell me what you mean by that?
There's a built-in figure. So if the prices do change for any reason, materials go up, labor costs go up, it's a guaranteed maximum price. So the construction managers, particularly when you have a long window before you get authorization to proceed, they will build in an escalator to ensure that there's enough money available. Whether you put it in contingency or you have it as an escalator, Harvey, has both built into the contract.
And how are they different? An escalator?
It's just separate categories. I'm sure there's a more specific you know, more detailed answer in terms of construction contingency as opposed to an escalator. I mean, the escalator is there if need be, if you want to draw upon it because a number goes up. It's very similar to construction contingency.
Just a follow-up. So I'm still not clear, but that escalator is it's something that is in the figure, but not necessarily. If it's not spent, it reverts to the city. Correct. Is that also true of the contingency?
Well, in a traditional project, what you're saying is true. Yes, contingency would revert back to the city. In this particular project, it's going to revert to the owner of the project, which is not technically the city because of the new market tax credit deal.
Okay. But
in theory, what you're saying, yes.
Okay, and that does help me understand the difference between the escalator and the contingency. One other question, if I could.
No, go ahead.
So, do you have any response to Ms. Cahoon's question about the costs of the exclusions from the guaranteed maximum? I had spoken with her. She addressed her concern to me, and I didn't have an answer for her. There are quite a few exclusions, and I know that you provided me with 12 items that have been priced out, but are there other items that do need to be priced out?
I'm not understanding the question. There are some exclusions that are being carried elsewhere in the budget, like FF&E, like specialty equipment. And then there's some exclusions, just to make clear that the project isn't going to actually take on those costs unless there's a change order requested. So it really is specific as to which ones you're mentioning.
Okay. All right.
Just for clarification's sake, what's FF&E?
Furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You know, this budget here that we're discussing is a subset of the total project cost. We're only discussing hard construction at 15.8. Some of the exclusionary items, and this is a unique project in that we have a lot of FF&E and specialty equipment or technical equipment that could be considered hard construction, or in this case, we've segregated it separately as, you know, part of the soft costs. Still will all be coordinated through Harvey for the project purposes, but it will be purchased separately. We have all those projects, all those equipments with, we have all the equipment confirmed prices, and they're holding their prices until December 30th. That's above and beyond the 15.8 though. It's something like 2.3, 2.4.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll get back to you with some of these specific questions. There are quite a few, but yeah, I'll get back to you. Thank you.
All right, anybody else with questions or comments? I don't see anyone. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderwoman Liu.
Yes.
Burke says yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
And Mayor Donches.
Yes, motion passes. Next on the agenda is new business ordinances. We have none. Record of expenditures. Alderman Harriet Gathright.
I motion that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period from October 30th, 2020 to November 12th, 2020 by roll call.
Any questions, comments on the record of expenditures? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderwoman Liu.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mayor Dodges.
Yes. General discussion. Is there any items anybody want to make general discussion? We're now then, if not, we're to the second public comment period. Does any member of the public wish to address the committee?
Yes, I would.
Please proceed, Mr. T-Boom.
Yes, the point about the contingency.
Maybe you should, sorry, maybe you should give your name and we know who you are, but just for the record, your name and address.
That's fine. Fred T-Boom. I reside at 24 Cheyenne. In answer to the exclusion question, this is a complicated project because you're tearing down an old building, the Alex Shoe Store, you're attaching it to and combining it with the building behind it, which is a 4-story, I think, apartment building, and making it into a theater, which has lots of complications. They have a lot of special equipment, all the staging, all the audiovisual stuff, a lot of furniture, a lot of seatings. It's a multiple purpose venture. So you don't price that out in the construction. You price it out in contingency because there can be a lot of change orders on this job, a lot of change orders. And I think if they go over, what, 20,000, 30,000 comes before the Finance Committee. I'm not sure what the number is anymore.
It's 25.
25,000, any change order comes back to this committee. You're gonna have a lot of change orders on this job. But you got another contingency. You got $1 million, I think Tim mentioned it. But the estimate that I have, that goes back to January, I've not been part of the later estimate. There was an owner's contingency. There is an owner's contingency of $1 million. That's a lot of contingency on the $25 million job. On top of that, and I've argued this, there's an endowment fund budget of $1.2 million. You don't need a $1.2 million budget endowment fund because the operator, Spectacle Management, is going to do this. An operator manages operates for $1 a year. So that $1.2 million could also serve as a backup in case you need it. That's up to the steering committee, and that'll come back. I presume that comes back before the Finance Committee. So that's $2 million of potential contingency. The construction manager, aside from the escalation, has an $800,000 contingency in case he has problems. Now, does that money come back to the owner? I don't think so. In the guaranteed maximum price, unless you negotiate, if there's a savings, you got a $15.2 million, $50.8 million construction job. Let's say things are fantastic and it comes in 14 million. Like the Bussey Park reactor came with low budget at the time because the costs were down. The construction manager keeps the money unless there is a sharing provision in a contract. I'm not aware that Tim has ever arranged a sharing. He doesn't share, it's not his head, he may want to address that. There's a sharing arrangement, like there's a savings of $1 million. The contract could say the owner gets half of that, half a million, and the contract manager gets $500,000. So these are all, none of this stuff is fixed. These are all negotiated items, just like every change order is going to be negotiated. I should also say that the fee is quite reasonable. I think there's a 4% fee on this job, 3%, 4% fee. It's a reasonable fee. I think, and final point is a guaranteed maximum price. Why would the contractor do a guaranteed maximum price? I mean, why don't you just do cost plus fee? Most military contracts people complain about it, all cost plus fee. The more you spend, the more you get in the fees. Well, it's the whole point about the guaranteed maximum price. You put a maximum fee on this thing. You cannot go over that price unless it's really, through change orders, they all have to negotiate it. And my final point is, you got a $25 million project. You got about a $16 million construction job. You got $9 million left over for everything else. This project should never go over 25 million. If it goes over 25 million, Mayor, somebody ought to get shot. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Teboom.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but there's a couple things I do think I should correct.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit. So. Can anybody, Tim, are you still on here? You were breaking up.
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you hear me now?
I think we can hear you now, yeah.
I was just saying there's a couple items I would like to just correct for the record. The previous speaker was correct on a lot of what he said, but I just want to make sure things are clear on a couple things, if I may.
Are you speaking?
Can you hear me?
On and off. The screen says that your network bandwidth is low.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Director Cummings, maybe if you shut your video off, that might help. Sometimes it helps with the bandwidth.
Thank you. Try. How about that? Is that better now?
Seems to have helped. Yes, thank you. We have a technical person on the committee. Thank God. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a couple points for clarification. The previous speaker was correct in a lot of what he said. There are just a couple elements I think just deserve just a further flushing out, and I don't want to belabor this point or extend the evening any longer than necessary, but standard protocol in the construction contracts for the city of Nashua is to typically have that split or reverter on the owner contingencies for building projects and the construction contingency. So that is in there. I think Alderman Dowd could speak to that in more detail if need be in terms of how school building projects are handled. Is everyone hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. But then relative to the actual owner of the project, and again, this is because how the new market tax credit is structured. The city of Nashua is not going to be the owner / developer of the project. It's being transferred and assigned. So this is something we'll get into more detail on the 24th, but I do want to make sure that that's clear to folks. There is a robust construction, owner's contingency. As the previous speaker pointed out, there was an endowment. That endowment basically rolled down into owner's contingency. So we're carrying about a $1.8 million owner's contingency now. That's on top of the 600-ish that is being held by Harvey. That's the construction contingency that I was referring to. I just wanted to make those points clear. I think the conversation on the 24th will be really helpful because we will get into more, granular detail about how we're structuring this deal to proceed. But at the end of the day, the 25 million should be more than sufficient to cover the costs for this project. I agree. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Here?
Yes.
Just a couple other things. The exceptions that they were talking about, those are usually unknown unknowns that in this case, probably unknowns known. A company being knowledgeable of things that could happen. They put those in there to make sure that it's known that it's not being covered under the guaranteed maximum price. If they encounter those things, it would have to be covered by a change order. change order would have to be approved through the process. Also, the contingency amounts are, as you go along in the project, when they realize that they're not going to spend the entire contingency either in design or construction, that money comes back to the project, comes back, in my case, to the city, in this case, to the owner. So they don't get to keep it. The other thing is there may be a lot of change orders, but right now we're experiencing a few change orders in the school system in the 3 middle schools, but we've had as many positive change orders, in other words, money coming back to us, as we have and money going out. Some of the change orders that we've experienced are things that we're doing because of COVID-19 to help the students with air circulation and other things. But you will get positive change orders that have money that reverts from the guaranteed maximum price. Again, the guaranteed maximum price doesn't change upwards unless there's a change order that drives it that way. And it would have to be approved by whoever has authority to approve change orders. In the school projects, it's the Joint Special School Building Committee, if it's over 50,000. So just wanted to clarify that or help clarify it for anybody listening. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd.
And then, Mayor, I'm sorry, one last point, and I just want to answer Mr. T-Boom's question. I want to make sure he knows that the change order management fee is the exact same for the guaranteed maximum price at 3.5%.
Okay. All right, we're on remarks by Alderman. Any Alderman have remarks? I don't see or hear anyone. Therefore, I will call on Alderwoman Clee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to adjourn by roll call, please.
The motion is to adjourn. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou?
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Laws?
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yes.
And Mayor Dodges?
Yes. Thank you all. It's good to see you. And the meeting is adjourned at 7:53 p.m.